Partner, we got a cow flying across the street in Oklahoma City. There's a cow flying in the air. Please take shelter. All right, guys. I'm not going to talk like that the whole time, but yeah, that's the sound of officials talking about tornadoes and stuff flying through cities. But anyway, we got some weather happening across the central United States. Over the next couple of days here, Thursday and Friday, and maybe even Saturday, some severe weather in that circled area. That'll track eastward. Then we got some more severe weather coming down into the northern parts of the U.S. That'll tank into the central United States and maybe even give us more severe weather over the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode of State of the Weather Address. And I'm also going to talk about a new tornado forecasting competition that we are having this spring with prizes. So I'll be unveiling that in this episode of the State of the Weather Address as well. And you'll also see me literally break down a tornado setup Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we're going to talk about. And I'm going to break it down from scratch. I haven't really even looked at this yet. And we'll go over some forecasting techniques for severe weather. So let's get right into it. So in this episode of State of the Weather Address, I'm going to talk about 4 key things that you can look for when forecasting severe weather. Okay, these are 4 very important ingredients in severe weather forecasting. We're going to briefly go over them. And if you want access to my severe weather forecasting playbook, I give you cheat sheets, all the ingredients that you need, all that type of stuff. Go ahead and click the link in the description below, and I'll send that right off to you. And you can use that to follow along. But anyway, let's just crack right into it. Welcome to the other side of the intro here, where we reveal the deepest, darkest secrets of meteorology. All right, guys. So I'm gonna talk about a setup on Friday, actually a setup on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we're just gonna look at this literally, and I'm just gonna break it down. And I haven't really even looked at this before, so you're gonna see me forecast live here. So get ready for this, and I'm gonna show you some techniques that you can use, and you can just kind of watch me forecast, and you can apply this to your own forecasting, and then I'll reveal that contest at the end here. So this is going to be our first day. This is from meteostar.com. This is the jet stream here, and we're looking at Thursday, 18Z, probably around 1 p.m. or so. And what I like to do is when we're looking at severe weather setups, where do we start? Well, I like to look at the jet stream. It's particularly 500 millibars when we're dealing with severe weather, because you'll get the vorticity and all that. But, and if you have a wave, here's our jet stream right here showing the vorticity. If we have a wave in the United States, you can pretty much bet there might be some severe weather associated with it. So this is just good at hunting for days that could have severe weather. Now that we see that there's a wave here, we can get a little more detailed. So we got a little trough here out in California, New Mexico, Arizona, yada, yada, yada. This is around Thursday at 18Z, 1 p.m. And this is looking at absolute vorticity. This is from meteostar.com. They have some of the best maps on this. These are positive values over here. These are negative values over here. Your jet streak's going to be kind of in between those positive and negative values. So your jet streak's probably going to be kind of in this area right here. Let me redraw that real fast, the different color. Yeah, your jet streak's probably going to be kind of in this area right here. And the area where you want to focus on with severe weather is right ahead of the positive vorticity. So here's your positive vorticity here, these dark red colors, pinks. Your best lift's going to be out ahead of it, just ahead of it, because at least where it's moving in. If it's moving eastward and you're like right here and this is moving towards you, that's good positive vorticity advection, okay? Depends on some other things, but that's a topic for another day. But anyway, that's what we're going to look for. So we got a trough here. Our best lift's probably going to be out in this area, but that's still at 1 p.m. So we go 6 hours later. This is at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Okay, so now this is beginning to move out. Here's your trough right here and your positive vorticity right here. Now, with severe weather setups and with just low pressure systems in general, you want to find that divergence in the jet stream. Here's your jet streak kind of right here-ish. And you want to find that divergence. Okay, see, these are the height lines. When they're diverging out like this, there's going to be lift underneath. Why does that happen? Well, if you think about it, we're going up high in the atmosphere right now, and we're examining the upper levels of the atmosphere. Now, when air is moving apart like that, something's going to have to fill its spot. So it's going to lift air up from the surface to fill that spot. And guess what? You got lift, so you got some storms, and you're probably going to get some low pressure systems, or a low pressure system develop somewhere in that area. Typically, it's going to form out in this left exit region of the trough up in this area right here, just ahead of that positive vorticity advection. So you're probably going to see a low pressure system, and we'll see if this happens or not, but probably going to see a low pressure system somewhere out in northeast Colorado here. Okay, and you're probably going to get severe weather really kind of up in this area right here ahead of that advection right there. So we'll see if that happens. We'll fast forward this into Friday now. Look at Friday. And this really begins to kind of crank and move its way eastward. And here we are on Friday around 7 p.m. And notice what happened here. This trough is now closed off. When it's closed off, these height lines start to loop like that. They're all closed off. It's detached from the jet stream up here, the main polar jet. I mean, it's still part of it, but not totally closed off, but a lot of it's closed off towards the center here. Now, what that usually means, you got a lot of lift, you got a lot of vorticity, a lot of lift. There's probably going to be some good storms out here. And you got some good divergence. You got southerly flow going north, which adds a little extra vorticity from the Earth's spin and Coriolis force. But again, that's another topic. But you got a good lift here. But for tornadoes in particular, this isn't as good when you have southerly winds like this, because there's less directional shear. But we'll look at the surface to see if it looks any different. But usually when these things close off, after a while, the tornado threat begins to diminish, even if there is still a lot of severe weather and rain and stuff. So nonetheless, there's probably going to be some severe weather out in this region on Friday. So we'll look for that on Friday. Saturday, we'll fast forward it. Here is Saturday. Still kind of got its act together a little bit, but it's starting to diminish here. These cutoffs will begin to diminish after a while. Here's our low pressure system. And hey, where's our severe weather going to be? Where's our low pressure system going to be? Well, jet streak kind of like that. We could have severe weather, maybe it's even underneath that a little bit out in this area. So we'll just kind of look out ahead of that and see if there's any severe weather. I don't know that you're going to get moisture return that far north into Illinois. It could be an area, but probably your best severe weather area is going to be kind of out in this area right here on Saturday. So we'll see what happens there. So that is the upper level dynamics. Now we're going to finally move into more of the good stuff. So I pulled up our good old friend Pivotal Weather, the newly famous weather model site. It's becoming very popular across the old weather community here. This is the NAM computer model, and we're just going to look at the precipitation it has breaking out. Again, I don't really recommend this for convection, for severe thunderstorms looking at convection, but we're just going to kind of look at the general gist here, just the overall picture. We're not going to get too detailed here. So we're going to fast forward, and we're going to go to 7 p.m. on Thursday, our first day here, and we can just kind of find fronts and general features going on here. So low pressure system out here in Colorado, two little areas here, but a little low pressure system there. Warm front's going to be kind of along that kink, and it's going to be on the southern end of that gradient, that thickness gradient. Okay, it's going to be on the southern end. It's beginning to cool off north of that, so your warm air mass is below it here. And so got some southerly flow, begins to back eastward. The wind generally follows those isobars, not perfectly, but generally, just layman's terms here. There's other factors that go into that. But anyway, our warm front is going to be kind of in that area. So we'll plot that again. You can see the kink of the isobars here. They kind of nudge like that. Cold front going to be ahead now of these thickness lines. Probably somewhere in that area right there. It's probably going to be a dry line there too. And maybe the cold front's a little bit farther northwest. But anyway, this is kind of our general look. We got some storms that are probably going to blow up in this area, maybe all the way down into the Texas Panhandle. We'll see what happens. And we'll fast forward this into the day on Friday, and you can see, yep, there's going to be some squall lines that move through Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. A lot of precipitation getting blown up. When you get these cutoff lows in the jet stream like this, things become very dynamic, and there's a lot of precipitation that occurs along the low pressure system here around it. And this is kind of the comma head look that you'll get with that. And a lot of the times you get messy storm modes, can sometimes screw up the tornado potential. You can sometimes scour the instability and stuff like that. But nonetheless, you do get storms and good amount of moisture and a lot of rain. So we'll see what happens. But maybe there could be some isolated tornadoes. We'll see. But here's our low pressure system that's going to sweep its way northeastward. This is Friday at 1 p.m., 18Z. So we'll fast forward it into the evening, and that squall line moves eastward, maybe some redevelopment along it. If that occurs, you could get some more strong storms and severe weather along it. But let's look at our fronts here. Let's see here. Probably got a cold or warm front somewhere out like that. Cold front kind of like that. And probably an occlusion out like that. Back to the low pressure system, the way that looks. And so, yeah, probably going to get some severe weather for Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, stuff like that on Friday. And then Saturday, that's just getting way too far out for that. Alrighty, dudes and dudettes, we got our friend Twister Data here. This is twisterdata.com. I'm just going to show you a couple of different sites I use. I still like this website. I usually use Pivotal Weather, but this is pretty good too at quick glances of the severe weather. And this is Thursday around 7 p.m., 54 hours out. We're looking at the NAM computer model. And this is showing the wind speeds at 500 millibars. So we were looking at the vorticity, kind of the lift. Now we're looking at the wind speeds. Here's our trough right here. And you can see our jet streak kind of in that area. And it kind of moves out northeastward there. And so we're going to look for our severe weather in this, again, kind of in that area and out ahead of that. And this is going to be good wind shear for severe weather. When you get values above about 40 knots here and higher, that usually means you got enough wind shear, at least for severe weather. There's enough, if you think about a thunderstorm. Here's your little cloud. Here's your thunderstorm. Okay, you want the precipitation to move away from its updraft. So its updraft is going to be over here. And what can do that? Well, the jet stream can. When you have a stronger jet stream, that's going to push all of that cold precipitation away from its updraft, so the updraft can keep feeding that storm. That's why you get severe weather. So this is good. This looks good. We'll look at Friday real fast. I'm not going to look too much into Saturday. We'll just quickly look at these 2 days. And, yep, good wind shear that day as well, at least speed wind shear. That's what we've been talking about here. This is a low pressure system. Good wind shear in this area right here to support storms. So we'll see if that area is going to be good for severe weather. Again, wind shear is one ingredient. We need instability, moisture, and lift. So we got lift. We got moisture here. We got wind shear. Now let's look at the moisture. So we'll go back to Thursday, and we'll look at the surface dew points. Okay, and we'll check that out again. This is a surface dew points. This is measuring the dew points on the surface. This is 7 p.m. on Thursday. And we can actually find some fronts here while we're at it here, because it has wind barbs and pressure gradients on this map all together. It's called a composite map. And so we can find some fronts and stuff. But moisture-wise, we are having some problems on Thursday here. A lot of this is getting kind of mixed out. There's a good little area of moisture here the day before on Wednesday, but it kind of blotches out, kind of mixes out. And let's see what our temperatures are here. We go down to temperatures, air temperature. Again, with severe weather setups, you like warmer temperatures and higher levels of moisture. And we got some warm temperatures here, 80s for this time of year. That's pretty warm, 70s, 80s in that area. And then we can look at our dew points again and see how much of a spread that is. Yeah, and our dew points really in the 50s and maybe 60s. You put that with 70s and 80s. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. It could definitely be better. Our best moisture being in this area right here. And so moisture is going to be a problem, I think, on Thursday. And not the best idea to see little packs of, less moisture like that, especially when that could advect northward. Maybe not the best. But there's more to examine than just this map, but we're just going to quickly look over this. But anyway, you got some return flow coming out of the Gulf. The Gulf is pretty warm for this time of year, though. But got some return flow moving northeastward. And there is some moisture to at least support some storms. So where's our low pressure system? Well, there it is right there. You can see these. This is the isobars, and there's the center of the low pressure system. So we're pretty close on that guess in northeast Colorado. It's right there. So there's our low pressure system, and our fronts are going to be attached to this thing. So a warm front is probably going to be somewhere around here. You got easterly winds backed along it like that. That's what you look for. And then you also look for a cutoff in the moisture and temperature. It's moist down here, and it begins to cut off north of there. And you look for a kink in the isobars. So you kind of have that kink right there in the isobars. These are the isobars. That's what you look for fronts. You got your low pressure system there. A cold front, probably something like that, and a dry line down there as well. Cold front might be a little bit further north. Again, there's more to examine than just the moisture, but then there's probably going to be a nice little dry line down here. And where's our storm is going to be? Well, it's going to be kind of along this warm front, closer to that low pressure system, and just along and ahead of that dry line. But you can see there's not a lot of moisture to work with, so I would say it's going to be marginal. Your best threat probably going to be right here near the triple point of the low pressure system, out in southwest Nebraska to maybe western Kansas. A little bit better moisture up there. So probably in this area is your best bet for severe weather at the moment. So for tornadoes too. And so that's our moisture, and now we're going to examine the instability. So we'll click on this instability tab. This is ingredient number 3. And, as a quick examination here, we're just going to look at CAPE, and we're going to look at the average CAPE here. We'll look at that. And, not a lot of instability either, but values above about 750 are good for severe weather. So about 750 to 1,000, that's about the minimum you need. And so anything on the greens really and above that is good for severe weather. And instability really adds buoyancy. What that means is the temperatures and moisture at the surface is really high. And as you go upwards, the temperatures are much lower. So higher temperatures are here, lower temperatures up there. We're going up with height. So you want to see colder temperatures as you go up, because warm air is going to rise. And if it's very cold above the surface and it's very warm and moist at the surface, that rising is going to be very rapid, okay? And so that's what we look for. And this is a measurement that kind of measures that. There's more that goes into it, but this is the general gist. And again, our low pressure system somewhere around here, our fronts somewhere like that. And you can see that moisture or that instability right along that dry line and near that triple point area. And again, the instability is kind of in that best area where I thought that severe weather would be. And so that enhances it even more. The best wind shear in that area, the best moisture, and now the best instability. And you got values from about 750 to about 1,200. So there could be some severe weather in western Kansas and southwestern Nebraska, maybe an isolated tornado potential. But again, moisture is going to be needed for tornadoes. So we'll look at the LCL real fast. This is something that complements moisture. This shows how the lowest condensation level. So the lower values equal lower cloud heights typically, okay, and that improves the potential for tornadoes. And I'm going to look at the instability real fast. Again, right in that area, and then LCL. And these values are near about 1,000, kind of where the storms are going to initiate. That's what you want to look for. And with tornadoes, you want it below about 1,000 max 1,500. You don't want them above that for sure, but you'd like it to be a little bit lower. But anyway, the moisture is probably going to be a problem either way for tornadoes, so that's going to lower the threat. But anyway, wind shear. How's our wind shear look? We got 50 knots, 60 knots in southwestern Nebraska, western Kansas. Pretty good. Pretty good. Again, 40 knots plus typically we need for supercells and thunderstorms. Severe weather, 35 plus knots. So again, that's going to add strength to storms and make them longer lasting. And then we forgot the lift. I want to show you lift real fast. Again, the jet stream, we have good lift. And again, those fronts. When you see convergence like this along these fronts, along the dry line, you got southwest winds here, and you got southwest winds over here and southeast winds over here. That convergence, if you think about it, the winds are going to come together, and then they're going to have to go up because they have nowhere else to go because the ground is below them, so they're going to have to go up. So that adds storms, into the air. So that's good. You got a lot of convergence around this dry line right here, and you got some backing that goes into the low pressure system here. So you could get some pretty good convergence in that area, especially in this area right here and down here. But this area looks to be the best for severe weather on Friday. So let's advance forward, that's Thursday. Now we're going to fast forward into Friday here. This is at 7 p.m. Let's back up an hour and see. All right, let's just look at 21Z, which is 4 p.m. on Friday. Here's our low pressure system right here. Probably got a warm front somewhere out like that. Probably an occlusion out here, and then a kind of a dry line ordeal, pseudo dry line cold front ordeal going up in that area. And there's going to be some storms out ahead of this right here. You see some deeper moisture on Friday. You look at that moisture return right there. It's a little bit closer to the Gulf too. You got some temperatures in the 60s and 70s, dew points in the 60s and 70s in this area, and some good convergence out in this area. Probably going to feed some storms out in that area for Friday. So the moisture definitely looks a little bit better. We'll quickly breeze over the Cape here, see if there's good instability to work with this day. No, not too much. It looks like there's going to be some ongoing storms the way it looks here. Probably going to have some ongoing storms, so maybe there'll be some storms that track through Oklahoma and Texas as a squall line Friday or Thursday night into Friday and move their way eastward. We'll see what happens. We'll look at the composite reflectivity real fast, but that's probably what's going to go on because it looks to be the case. There's probably going to be some clouds and precip there, and the instability is not going to be overly high. Maybe some south of there, and maybe you can get some redevelopment out ahead of that line or on the southern end, maybe up here as well. And so instability is marginal as well on Friday. We'll look at let's look at wind shear real quick. Actually, we already looked at that. Look at wind shear. And values, pretty good. 80 knots, 70 knots in that area. Probably going to be a nice squall line the way it looks. And with that said, we're going to look at Saturday really quickly. I'm not going to go into too much detail on Saturday because it's still a far amount of days out there still in advance. So usually with days far in advance, I'll just look briefly at the surface and then I'll look at the jet stream. I won't really look at much more because so many things can change, like the convection overnight on Thursday and Friday could completely change the setup for Friday and Saturday. And just lots of other things can happen. You're dealing with very small little scale things sometimes here. Anyway, our low pressure system is going to be right there. You can see that nice cyclonic flow. And these become very pronounced when those cutoff lows begin to occur up in the jet stream. But anyway, you got some pretty good cyclonic flow, a little bit of a low pressure system there. And you can see on Saturday, got some more return flow out of the Gulf. Best moisture is going to be out in this area right here. And this day doesn't look quite as impressive, not as organized, a little messier, but there's probably going to be some severe weather out ahead, maybe out in this area right here. So we'll see what happens. Again, moisture being this far north, I don't know about that. I don't know if there's going to be enough moisture up there to get any storms up there. But it's probably going to be further south near the Gulf on Saturday. So we can look for that area, and then, if it looks like it's going to be good, we can make a future video or something about that. And here's the jet stream. A little bit weaker, but wind shear could support some stronger storms, maybe some severe weather for that area as well. All right, one more thing we'll look at are soundings. And these are literally meteorological bombs for forecasting. These are very useful. Okay, and so we're going to go first on Thursday here. Here's our low pressure out in Colorado. And you can see the front's kind of in that general vicinity. We're going to click out ahead of this, and we'll maybe click in this area right here where we had that instability, the highest amount of instability. And this is the NAM computer model on pivotalweather.com. So we'll go ahead and click maybe right here near McCook area, and look at the sounding here. See what it has. This is a Sharpie sounding. They're very detailed. You can get information about that specific point for different levels in the atmosphere. And you can see here very steep lapse rates, really steep lapse rates, but not the best moisture or not overly warm either at the surface. So either way, there's decent instability here in the middle there. You got some directional shear. You want turning with height for tornadoes. You got southeast winds here, back veering to the southwest, and about 50, 60, 70 knots up here and about 10, 15 at the surface. So got some decent wind shear, but not the best looking sounding in the world for tornadoes. You'd like this to be a little bit stronger. And it's also capped here, a little bit of a cap. So maybe not the best location, but this is kind of the general look in this area. And you can find your possible hazard type here, but that sometimes is, it's not always accurate. I would say your own judgment is good to include as well in that. This is your hodograph out here. It's going to show your wind shear. With hodographs, you'd like them to kind of look like this. Here, I'll redraw that. You'd like them to kind of shoot up like that and then kind of turn around at a 90-degree angle and curve like that. You have this big looping, curving hodograph. Maybe a little bit larger, but that's good for tornadoes and directional shear and stuff like that. You'd like to see that angle closer to 90 degrees. It's around 62, but anyway, that's we can do a course on that in the future. But that's one little area. We can go farther south into Kansas, and just ahead of that front, and we'll see what happens here in Kansas. Yeah, same general look. Not as much directional shear down here because you're farther south of that warm front, more southerly winds down here. But either way, very marginal looking sounding. But nonetheless, I do think that there is some severe weather potential in this area. Might be some capping issues, but we'll see what happens. And again, instability, we'll look at that a little bit farther zoomed in. You can see the instability in western Kansas, southwestern Nebraska. But as this thing pulls out on Friday, it'll go 0Z. Could get a little pocket of instability pockets of instability along the front on Friday. And we can click in some areas. We'll click in that area. Again, this is a whole nother course you can look at. But watch what happens when these cutoff lows begin to happen. You can see the southerly winds up there. The jet stream's kind of curved like this now, where it's more southerly. That really screws up the directional shear, and actually you have southwesterly winds here at the 700s, but it backs to the southeast here at 700 or 500 and 300 millibars. That's not very good for severe weather. It can cause venting problems and all sorts of mess, seeding, and just some problems in severe weather. I never like to see that when forecasting, particularly tornadoes and supercells. But anyway, there's some directional shear here. Very weak mid-levels, not very strong at all. There is some instability right here a little bit. Really low topped here, not very high top supercells. This is your equilibrium layer up here. And wherever, that's how high your storm is going to be. But overall, low topped, unorganized. Doesn't look all that great. Possible hazard type, marginal severe. So I think this is going to be a marginal day, but I do think it's going to be widespread. So there's going to be more opportunities for thunderstorms to develop. And you're getting a nice little squall line out ahead of this. So it's going to be very widespread when you get these dynamic systems. So you'll probably see a slight risk, maybe an enhanced risk out there on Friday just because of how widespread and how many storms there's going to be. Again, it doesn't look overly great, but there's going to be very widespread, so probably a risk associated with that day. So that's the most I'm going to look into. I'm not going to look into Saturday. That's getting pretty far out. All right, with all that said, that concludes today's State of the Weather address. Now, we've got a important severe weather forecasting competition coming up this spring. Haven't really picked out a name yet, but I'll be picking it out soon. It's coming up by the second week of April. I'll send out more details soon, but we're going to forecast tornadoes across the United States. And this is a tornado forecasting competition. And this is actually last year's. We had kind of a test run last year. And different people would forecast different tornado targets. So you'd pick your location, and you'd have a 30-mile radius around this location. And if there was any reports, say we had a tornado report located, maybe over here, the person would score points. Okay, maybe they had multiple reports in their little radius. And so this was one of the features of the tornado forecasting competition. There were other features as well. And we plotted all of these on a map, and you could see where everyone was forecasting what and all that. And we had different maps, heat maps, all that type of stuff. And so it was a very cool thing for forecasting tornadoes. Not only do you get to guess, but you get to see data as well, where everyone's guessing, consensus data. And so that's what the forecasting competition was. Well, this year we're doing the same thing, but we're adding some things. We're removing some of the things that didn't work. We're adding new things. We're making it a lot better this year. And if you want to join, go ahead and click the link in the description below. And by clicking that link, enter your name and your email address, and I'll put you on the VIP registration list, and I'll send you off that severe weather forecasting playbook as well as a bonus just for jumping on. And it's a cheat sheet guide, gives you all this severe weather forecasting cheat sheets and recipes and ingredients and all that and stuff I use. And so by doing that, I'll send you out an update. There will be prizes as well. We're going to have a first, second, and a potentially third place winning prize, and we'll have a tournament this year as well. So it's going to run for about 10 weeks from mid-April to about early July. And we're going to have a tournament, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So jump on that. And again, registration will close the first week of April. There will be no other registration then, so register sooner than later. And if you're interested in that, go and click the link in the description. Enter your name and enter your email address. I'll send you the playbook, and I'll send you updates when this happens. And oh yeah, one more thing. Go ahead and click the subscribe button. We're going to be releasing more forecasting breakdowns, forecasting tutorials, probably on about a weekly basis. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.